Good morning, good afternoon. Thanks for joining our site search webinar today. My name is Jason Wu. I'm on the Swiftype marketing team and I'll be your moderator. Joining us today is Jonas Lavoie from our product team here at Swiftype. Thanks, Jonas, for being here today.
Thank you, Jason.
So before we get started, I just want to go over a little housekeeping. We're going to take questions at the end. You can submit your question in the Q&A panel on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. The PowerPoint slide and recording will be available via follow-up email after the webinar, so look out for that. So let's get started. There you go. For those of you who are new to Swiftype, here's a quick background of our company. So we were founded 6 years ago with the idea of building a modern cloud-based site search solution. We wanted an easy way for customers to create an advanced search experience for their websites and application. We are based in San Francisco, California, and we're currently serving thousands of customers with billions of searches across the customer base every single month. And here's a slide of a quick snapshot of our customer. Some of these names you might be familiar with. We serve across many different industries, different sizes, and from all over the world. We had a big announcement last November that you might have heard. We've joined forces with Elastic, the company behind many popular open source projects and the creators of Elasticsearch, which is what Swiftype Search is built on. The alliance is a perfect fit for our product and customer. It has accelerated the development of many new features and functionality that will make it even easier for our customers to deploy search for their organization. So now we're going to pass it over to Jonas to talk about site search.
Thank you, Jason. So today we wanted to talk a little bit about, some of the challenges that some of you may be facing. You may be thinking about adding search to whether it be a website, a public website, or other projects. And we'd like to maybe cover a little bit of what it means, in 2018 to think about search and what some of the solutions out there will help you with those projects. So we're gonna go over a few elements before, just kind of like set the tone and understand what the key challenges are, and then we're going to jump into a live demo. Please do not hesitate to send your questions over the chat that you will find on the right-hand side. Now, just establishing a little bit here, a bit of a baseline so that everyone understands what the search challenges can be in your organization. There's a couple of elements that always come back when talking to people in need of or thinking about search projects. So first of all, there's always a consolidation of data. There's the goal of search is the ability, obviously, to retrieve and consolidate information into a single source of truth, and allow any user, whether it be an internal one or an external one, to access that information swiftly. Now, obviously, this is let's just call it the most traditional need when it comes to search. But then there's also going to be all the additional elements that you need to think about when it comes to search. So there's obviously the precision. So it's one thing to have all that information live in one area and for it to be searchable, but if then the querying of that data is not precise, then there's really no benefit from having all of that in a single place. Now, the second thing too is the consistency of that delivery. How reproducible are those queries? If I make a query one day and the next day I make the same query, am I expecting the same results, or am I expecting results that are going to be in line with that updated set of data, for instance? So if I'm to search for something based on relevance, and then suddenly I wanna use say recency as something that will affect the result output and drive different type of relevance. Is that consistent across the board as over time I keep using the tool? We want to make sure that we set the right expectation when using search. And then last but not least, and this is something that is a little more probably geared towards you as a buyer, as someone who actually is thinking about this project, is the ability to own that experience from end to end without having to necessarily have a strong understanding of what actually search technologies are, or without having a strong technical know-how when it comes to simply managing results or adding more content to a search engine or what have you. Now, what we offer at Swiftype here, and just to make sure that everybody's on the same page here, is both the ability to add search easily and rapidly to any sort of web experience that you may be interested in, and we're going to cover some of those use cases in a second. But it's also the ability to manage that experience from a entirely cloud-based experience, both the delivery of results is cloud-based, but as well as the management piece of it. So there is no on-premise, requirements here. You don't have to install that software on your own servers and what have you. So all that management happens in the cloud, which makes it incredibly easy for non-technical stakeholders to actually manage, whether it be the relevance, the content, review some of the analytics, see how your search is performing, and what have you. And as part of the live demo, we'll get into that. So why do you want to have better search? Well, it may seem pretty straightforward and easy and obvious, but you want to make sure that you engage your web visitors by simply delivering better results. So you want to make sure that as people are looking for things, they get what they're looking for, and that's going to drive engagement. You also want to make sure that maybe you search to optimize for a certain audience. So in the case, for instance, of a publisher, if you're a web publication, you want to make sure that you can serve additional material as people are reading through, say, an article. You might want to provide related results, which can be powered by search. You can also offer the ability for someone to dive deeper into specific subject matters. If you're in help and support, obviously what you want to do is you want for people to feel empowered. You want to feel like people do not feel stupid. And that's a word that we use a lot, that we hear a lot when people talk about their users. My users don't want to feel stupid. They want to be able to help themselves. And that has a side benefit, obviously, of reducing the support load and therefore the support operation costs within your organization. Some of the examples here that some of our customers and how they've been using site search. For instance, here we have an e-commerce example. So e-commerce is a great example of how search will be driving there will be a direct relationship between good search and the bottom line, obviously, because as people find what they're looking for and get to it quicker, you're going to increase your checkout rates and what have you throughout the funnel. When it comes to, for instance, a help center, if you want to make sure that you can provide a good search with a solid autocomplete experience, you might be able to guide people to the right guides as they're typing in a question. You're able to recommend some articles as they are typing, and if they want to dive deeper and they want to get into more of the filtering and faceting capabilities, as you've seen here in the e-commerce world, also applies to the knowledge-based world. And then also here another example when it comes to media and publishing. If you're a web publisher, search is obviously going to be interesting if you want to surface some content, or if you want to give a certain level of freedom to users so that they can get to the content they care most about. How do we do that? Well, there's obviously a ton of features, and these all come out of the box. So every single one of those features with Swiftype serves a very specific purpose and is linked to another feature. So obviously the core of our business is delivering out of the box outstanding relevance, so you don't have to do anything, and the relevance based on the data that you ingest will be exceptional out of the box. And then associated to that are features to customize essentially the search output. So what you can do is you can start diving into the analytics platform that we provide, and it gives you some level of visibility on how people use search, what kind of search queries they make, are there any search queries that return no results, and what have you, and then use that data in order to perhaps re-rank certain queries where you might want to promote certain results, or you may want to adjust the weighting features here so that it allows you to boost certain types of content based on the context. Do you want, for instance, the popularity of an article or a number of views on an article to drive the relevance and perhaps push this result at the top of the list? And then obviously comes all the niceties of having typo tolerant both autocomplete and search results. So spell check, we all type really quickly. If we're on mobile, I mean, I'm sure you yourself probably typo more if you're on mobile, and obviously that typo tolerance is very, very important so that it reduces a lot of friction for a user to get to the result they actually care most about. And then additional features. I'm not going to cover all of this. We're going to get to that in the live demo. Now, one of the things I want to make really clear here is that from a content ingestion perspective, what really makes Swiftype and makes us the leader in that space is obviously our powerful web crawler. So essentially setting up an engine, setting up a search engine on your website requires two things: A, ingesting the content and making sure that we can search over that content, and B is also adding that functionality to the website. So essentially taking over that search bar that you may already have on that website or adding a new one. And so we're going to be giving you tools in order to do those two things. When it comes to ingesting data for your website, it's as simple as entering your website URL into our dashboard and clicking crawl, and then the Swiftype crawler will do all the heavy lifting, go on the website, identify the content that needs to be ingested and crawled. We'll obviously we'll structure that data in such ways that search will be incredibly relevant and we'll be returning great results. And then you can also use our API if you're a little more technical and you want to really control the information that is being sent over to the search engine. You also get to do that. Now, I will say that most users that want to get started very rapidly or want to have have a pretty standard use case when it comes to search, I would say 99% of those people will use the web crawler, but the API is available and is also very powerful. Now, the other thing I want to mention is obviously all of those features here, result ranking, weights, autocomplete, while they all sound incredibly powerful, and they truly are, they don't require any sort of technical knowledge in order to use them. And we're going to get to that once we get to the live demo, which is right now. So let's just jump right in. So what I want to do here is essentially there's two parts to this demo. First, I want us to look at what this a search experience looks on a website. For instance, here we have a web publication, and we're going to look at some of the features on how an end user on your website would consume the results, how they would experience that search that you deploy on the website, and then we're going to look at the let's call it the back of house or the dashboard where you do all the management, and then you can adjust results. You can do all sorts of like stuff around analytics and what have you. So here we have a web publication. Here it's let's call it a tech publication with articles and everything you'd expect from a standard blog. And on the top right hand side here we have this magnificent search box that is powered by Swiftype. So I can go in there here and I can start typing. And as you see, as I start typing, obviously I get very quickly I get results. So there's very fast autocomplete. As I keep typing, you'll see that here we have a segmented autocomplete, which means that we have stories, videos, and company profiles being broken down here by type. If you want those results to be mixed, you get to do that. If you want to segment, you get to do that. One thing that's very important to understand here is that from a visual standpoint, from a visual customization standpoint, from a font, colors, how everything gets displayed, this is entirely in your control. So we provide you with the tools in order to make it super easy to style those things. And obviously, if you want to take over full control via technical means, you get to do that. But it's very important to understand that you are not tied to a very specific style when it comes to using Swiftype search. So, I'm typing in a query here. I'm really interested in Apple, so I could go here and click into any of those results and go directly to that page. But I'm interested in going to the full search experience here. So I'm going to hit enter on this query. And what we're going to see here is that we have this full search experience, this full search page here with a little more information. In this case, I'll have information about the date of publication, the author. I'll have some thumbnails here. It helps me kind of like look through some of those results and understand what's happening. And you'll see at the top here, we have a sponsored result. This is part of our result ranking functionality, and we'll get into that once we get into the dashboard. But what's important to notice here is that we've actually pinned this very result at the top of the query. We didn't at the top of the result output, sorry. So here we could have pinned this result in the third position, what have you, and we'll get to that in the result ranking feature demo. But what's important to understand is that you have flexibility over how you want those results to be ranked. So obviously the relevance will be great out of the box, but if there are some tweaks that you want to make, it's totally available here through the dashboard interface. On the left-hand side here, you'll notice that there's faceting, and so sorting and filtering. Obviously, all the features that in 2018 you would expect a powerful search experience to have. Obviously, I can filter down to specific authors and what have you, and then you'll see that the result output here will change. But what's important here is obviously those are dynamic, and based on the content that's getting displayed on the right-hand side here in my results set, that information will get updated. Now, one of the things I want to do here is I perhaps want to go ahead and look for watch, but as you notice here, I have on purpose typo. This is just to show you a bit here, some of the typo tolerance as well as spell check. So obviously here the query was reissued using the word watch because that we consider it based on some of the scores and a lot of the algorithmic stuff that we do on the back. We've determined that this is a better query and this is probably what you're looking for. Again, so we're trying to make it as easy as possible and as frictionless as possible for a user to use the platform. So that is a very quick overview of what for instance a very typical search experience would look like to an end user. As you can see here, if I wanted to add a lot more information on how a result gets displayed, if I want the whole thing to be blue, if I want all those things. If I want videos to appear in the back or what have you, like you get to do that. This is essentially the power is in your hand. We give you the proper tools in order to do that, and it's very straightforward. Now, all of this is powered obviously from the cloud, incredibly performant and distributed. So obviously results are very fast. I'm sure you've seen here as I hit enter, results get returned very quickly. And this all gets managed through also a cloud-based interface that is the Swiftype dashboard that we're looking at here. There's a few key components here that I want to go over. So there's a few things that you have to know around user management, and obviously not everybody on the platform necessarily has the same level of access to the dashboard. So if you have, for instance, someone who's an editor might have a little less functionality available to them with regards to, for instance, adding new content to a search engine and what have you, whereas administrators will have full access to all those things. And some people will only have access to the analytics platform, for instance, to get to create reports and what have you. So there's a lot of granularity in terms of which user can actually have access to this dashboard here. So what we're looking at now is, very typical analytics view. This is where you go to see all, how data gets consumed, what kind of search traffic you get on your search experience. You get to see some of the queries that are being made here. You get some of the most popular autocompletes, and so understanding what kind of queries, and how far people go before they actually choose a result or the kind of query that was made. You got some click-through rate data as well. And then if we get a little further down, and depending on how your search is performing or what have you, we can go to the Insights tab, and this is a little more oriented around actionable items, right? So here we're presenting like ways to reduce searches with no results. So perhaps if this query term here has a lot of searches but no results being returned, there is a way for you to either create a synonym to match it with another word, say in this case would be gas, and then start returning results for that specific query, or maybe creating new content on your website and pushing this content to the search engine because it seems like there's a lot of interest for that keyword. You could also use a result ranking tool in order to create a result set that would be essentially tailored to that specific query, and we'll get into that. Jumping into some of those result customizations that I've been talking about. Here, looking at the result ranking here, which is one of the most used feature on the platform. If I look here at one of the query that we've already updated and that we've actually seen on the live experience here, you'll see that I've actually pinned a result here at the very top of this result set. We've looked for Apple, which is a query we made earlier, and then as you can see, we have the result output, but it's also possible to move results around because perhaps I think that this should be a sponsored result of sorts, so this is maybe more relevant to, in the case of a knowledge base or help center, I know that if someone types in that query, they're probably looking for this article, and given that the relevance might be driving another document up because the keyword frequency or what have you might drive higher relevance, that maybe this is what you want to promote. So it could be with products on e-commerce, it could be with articles on publishing, it could be with all sorts of use cases. But this is incredibly powerful. There's also the ability to add results to search outputs. So obviously, if for any reason a result is not appearing here and you'd like a result to appear for that specific query, you get to add that result. You can also remove results if you don't want them to appear. So that way you get to clean up some of the content that may be appearing there that you may want for other queries, but you may not want for this specific query, what have you. Obviously, if there's a result that you don't want to appear in every single query, we recommend that you don't use this feature and you remove simply the document from your search index. But we won't get into that level of detail today. Now, other functionality here that relates to the customization of results is what we call weights. So what I can do here is I can go in here and I can type in a query. I'm going to get a result output here. That's going to be very interesting. And then what we can do is we can actually use a lot of those attributes here to perhaps move the needle and say, like, I really want the title to be actually what matches most. And as you can see, as I'm doing this, as I'm moving the slider around, you'll see that the result output actually changes, and like ordering in that result output changes. And for some cases, like a lot of time what we'll see is popularity of articles. There are specific attributes which you can pick from your list of fields here that will, for everything that's been indexed, for instance, for your content. What's interesting here is that this affects the entirety of your search engine, right? So what this does is at large, so not for a specific query, but for every single query out there, the title now we will be doing heavier matching on the title than we will on the body. So you get to essentially determine where, what the real relevant signals are for you and for your own use case. And what's amazing about this feature is actually you don't need a developer in order to do that. You can have, for instance, whoever owns the content. It could be a marketer, it could be a support manager, it could be all this. We really deeply know the content and the subject matter of what actually is important to their end user or what their use case, and not necessarily the developer who's in charge of implementing it, but might be a little more removed from the business goals. So you put that power in the hands of whoever actually cares most about this, and this is incredibly powerful. Now, last but not least, we have synonyms. Synonyms is a very straightforward feature here. If you were to look at a synonym set that was already created here, essentially what is happening here is that we have the term Comcast, and because we know Xfinity and Comcast are essentially synonyms here, we can actually map them together and say when someone searched for Comcast, they could be looking for content about Xfinity and vice versa. And so this is incredibly powerful in a lot of ways. So you just want to make sure that users don't have to learn your vocabulary on how you address things, and so you can actually address their need in their own vernacular and the way they call things. So gas, patrol, all those things. And obviously this varies greatly from an industry to another. You might have different use cases. Acronyms are an excellent example too. Like a lot of people might call it, the IRS, but nowhere in your content do you call it the IRS, you call it the Internal Revenue Service, for instance, and you could create synonyms there to make sure that those queries are getting captured properly and that people get the right content served to them. And so that's we could go into greater length into this this dashboard here, but those are the main features that I think are really important to understand, and those are the features that make Swiftype Swiftype. I can get really quickly here into the content tab, and this is where you're going to see where all of your actual pages and what have you get stored, and you get to explore that content here, and you get to see how a document was indexed. You get to see the fields that are attached to it, and then you can also do a bit of overall auditing on your content, understanding here, has this content been indexed properly? What does this look like? What is the thumbnail right now? And then you get to do any sort of auditing that you want there, or changes to how the content get ingested. And last but not least, we have the domains tab here, which essentially covers all the domains that are being crawled for a specific engine. Obviously, you can add multiple, depending on the plan that you are on at Swiftype, you can crawl multiple domains and consolidate all of those domains under one search engine so that you can search over your corporate website, your let's call it your knowledge base, and perhaps another microsite, all from one area, and then filter over those things based on the experience that you may be in. So the consolidation across domains is also very important. That's something that a lot of our customers actually appreciate quite a lot. So I think this covers pretty much everything I wanted to cover today when it comes to this demo. I do know that we may have some questions, so perhaps we look at those questions right now.
Yeah, Jonas, thank you again. So there's a couple questions. I'm not sure if we can answer all these questions, but if we don't get to your questions, we'll definitely follow up with you right after the webinar. First one, this one, someone asked, is it possible to add Swiftype to any CMS?
Yeah, so the beauty about Swiftype is that obviously it's completely CMS agnostic. So regardless of the platform you're using, when it comes to either ingesting data or adding it to your website, we're not tied to any sort of specific CMS. We do have plugins for instance, for WordPress to make it easier for you to add that to your website. But if you're running in Joomla, Drupal, or even your own custom CMS that you've built yourself, or you're running on no CMS at all, and you're pulling stuff directly from static file somewhere to serve content, this doesn't matter to us. We give you all the tools for you to add this easily to your website, both on the front end, but also manage the content that was ingested from the back end.
Cool. Here's another one. I guess this is very relevant, especially during this time. So in what way is Swiftype similar to GSS, which is Google Site Search? And is it difficult to switch from GSS to Swiftype?
Simple answer to this is no. It's actually not difficult at all to switch from the GSS to Swiftype. And it's a great segue because we're going to be talking in a few seconds about the next webinar here. But so Essentially, you can think of Swiftype as simply as a better alternative to GSS. It comes packed with way more features, also more performant. This is our bread and butter. This is what we focus on, whereas the GSS was, one of the many side businesses of Google. And so it's very easy to transition. There's no concept here that you're going to be completely surprised with how we approach search if you come from the GSS world. But some of the things that we do better is obviously like easier to add to your website because we give you all the proper libraries and all the tools in order to do that. But also the management experience. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it just from the dashboard and the look and feel, a lot more intuitive to use. And then for those of you who are used to the GSS interface, you might have like gotten used to like the poor user experience, but once you start using a tool like Swiftype, and then once you add people on your team that might have never seen a GSS, might have been way too complicated for them, and then they start using this interface, actually makes it a lot easier, removes a bit of that friction for you, and then allows your team also to join you when it comes to managing those results and what have you.
Cool. All right, thanks, Jonas. So I think we have a couple minutes left. So sorry if we couldn't get to your questions. So we'll definitely follow up with you right after the webinar. So like we were saying, so GSS is going away. They sunsetted last year, and it will officially be shutting down in a couple months, April 1st to be exact. So, I guess if you still haven't found a replacement, like Jonas said, we're definitely a solution. And we're currently offering special migration assistant for any current GSS customer. So, follow up with us, email us at success@Swiftype, or visit our website to access the program. And we actually are doing another webinar on this specific topic on Thursday, February 1st. So Jonas will be doing the demo, going over the high level of Swiftype site search, plus some specific steps and tips for migrating from GSS to Swiftype. So you can find the registration links on the follow-up email that I will be sending out to you right after the webinar. So this wraps up our webinar. So thanks, Jonas, again, for taking us through the demo. And thank you all for joining us today, and hope to see you guys all next week. Have a great rest of your day.